Welcome to Open Campus Soft Skills course, Module 9, Communication Barriers. In this module, you will learn the definition of communication barriers. You will learn the different types of communication barriers, how to overcome communication barriers, and how to handle criticism on the job and with customers. Well, what are communication barriers? Communication barriers are anything that prevents the exchange of information from being transferred from one person to another. Our focus areas for this module will be on the types of communication barriers, how to overcome communication barriers, and specific ways to handle criticism. Well, let's look at the different types of communication barriers there are. There are four main types. We have language barriers, we also have emotional barriers, organizational barriers, and personal barriers. And we're going to dive a little deeper into each of the four types of communication barriers. First, when we look at language barriers, we're talking about the use of jargon or slang, foreign languages and accents, different word meanings. Oftentimes it's called semantics, because across cultures, certain words can mean certain things. In fact, just the change in inflection of a particular symbol can take on a whole different meaning for a similar or in fact the same word. We also look at language barriers when we're talking about language barriers. We're also looking at body language when we're talking about language barriers. Emotional barriers. Emotional barriers include difficulty expressing emotion, lack of attention to what's being said because you either are focused on something else that's outside of the communication process, you may be daydreaming, doodling, or just not interested in what's being said. Having a level of distrust with the individuals that you're engaging in communication with can also provide a barrier or present a barrier for communication. Poor retention or loss in communication can also create emotional barriers. When we look at organizational barriers, we're talking about particular things such as corporate structures. We've looked at corporate structures in some of our previous modules, but not being clear on the structure of the organization in which you work for. Also having a weird organizational environment where you have different cliques or different groups of individuals that may kind of communicate and engage with each other, and then you have other people that are kind of left out of the bunch, out of the crowd. Well, the environment and how things flow in an organization, if it's flowing effectively, then you're going to have less barriers that you have to overcome in communication. Also, looking at status. Employee status, individuals that are a particular, if they're top level management, mid-level management, lower level employees, status can sometimes provide a barrier to communication. And having unclear policies, roles, rules, and regulations can also bring about barriers. Now, when we talk about personal barriers, we are looking at physical disabilities, things that could possibly prevent someone from being able to communicate, as well as cultural differences. Cultural differences can impede communication based on distance and proximity. In certain cultures, eye contact. In America, in Western civilizations, eye contact, looking people directly in the eye, that's something that is considered a positive thing, whereas in other cultures, looking someone in the eye could be considered a form of disrespect. So when there are different cultural differences, then that can immediately present a block in communication. Also, co-worker confidence. What I mean by that, it kind of goes back to status. Sometimes the top level employees tend to not have as much confidence or regard to input or feedback from lower level employees. And so having a strong level of confidence in the people that you work for, that's going to remove barriers. Also, fear of authority. If you happen to be in a low-level or mid-level position and you're finding yourself having to challenge authority, upper management, having a fear of dealing with those particular challenges can also present barriers to communication. And finally, when you're looking at personal barriers, your prejudices or stereotypes of different individuals. We're looking at race, we're also looking at gender, we're also looking at, even when it comes down to work ethic. Sometimes people who are not as of a go-getter or an initiator, that can be a stereotype that can be placed on that individual, and having a certain perspective of individuals, fellow co-workers, can in fact present a communication barrier. Well, let's look at how to overcome communication barriers. And here are 6 tips. First, understand that people may see things differently. We are all unique individuals, and our perception of things may very well be different from one another. Also, take the time to listen to others. We spend a lot of time talking, and we need to make certain that we spend just as much time listening when it comes down to communication barriers and ways to prevent it. Use appropriate language for your audience. If you are using language and long, flowery words that basically creates a disconnect, if you are speaking to a young group, a middle school group, or an elementary school group, for example, that may be doing a job shadow, and you are using words that they can't make sense of or don't know, well, then that's going to provide or present a communication barrier. Also, anytime you can, try to speak with individuals face to face. Because when you're face to face with someone, you're able to look at their body language. You're able to listen to how they verbalize certain words. And you're then able to pick up different cues about feedback, if they really understood what you were saying or if there needs to be some more clarity provided. And also, use the proper communication channel. Decide if this particular communication need, if it needs to be conducted via email, just to shoot a quick note out, or is it something that needs to be a phone call, or do you need to schedule a face-to-face meeting, for example? And lastly, you want to communicate with honesty and integrity. You want at all times that what you say should never have to be called into question. So if you operate consistently, with confidence, but most importantly, being honest and forthright, that will have a lasting impact on communication and oftentimes break down barriers. Well, what is criticism? Criticism is the expression of disapproval of someone based on perceived faults or mistakes. In our workplace, there are times that we may find ourselves receiving or being on the receiving end of communication, where here are some ways that we can handle communication, or handle criticism a little better. First, don't get defensive. Don't feel that everyone is attacking you and everyone is coming down on you really hard. Stay calm. Take time to listen to what is being said to you. Assess the accuracy of what someone is saying to you. That allows you an opportunity to deal simply with the facts. Ask questions. If there's any time you don't understand what is being addressed to you, what concerns are being presented to you, always ask questions so that everyone can be on the same page and everyone can be able to communicate effectively with each other, knowing that everyone understands the topic or the issue of concern. And lastly, address the concern. After you've went through steps 1 through 5, if there is in fact a valid point, address the concern and figure out solutions to correct whatever issues or problems there may be. Also, when we're looking at criticism, we want to also look at criticism with customers. And here are 4 key steps to remember. Always apologize for the inconvenience that has been presented to a customer. Be the first to admit the mistake. Remember, there's that old saying that the customer is always right. Well, you want to take a proactive stance and admit that something happened or something was conducted or handled inappropriately. Just be forthright and admit that. Third, you want to ask for customer input. Take the opportunity to ask the customer for suggestions. Ask the customer for their return visit, giving them an opportunity to come back and let you make it right on another visit. Also, being able to be open for their input on suggestions on how things can be done better in the workplace. And lastly, show that you appreciate the customer. Appreciation goes a long way, and it's key to basically maintaining that customer loyalty. So those are 4 simple ways to handle customer criticism. Apologize, admit, ask, and appreciate. This concludes the first part of Quiz 9, Communication Barriers, and at the end of the complete module, you will have a quick quiz on communication barriers.